Hello, my name is Karen Hughes, and I am the Domestic Violence Clinical Services Coordinator for the Life Crisis Center, and I want to welcome you to Life Crisis Today. Mental health is being a big issue right now. We see it in the news, we see it on social media that folks are struggling. And when we think of mental health, we also think possibly suicide. So we're going to be talking about that today. And with me is Jen Dale, and she is a therapist at the Life Crisis Center, but she's also the Life Crisis Center's 211 director. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Karen.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Mental health issues are really on the rise right now, and I know trying to get treatment or getting resources is a struggle for folks. So why don't we talk about that today and talk about more about suicide in general. There is a national program of 211, but it's going to be changing and starting a new program called 988.
National
What
Suicide
is
Lifeline.
that? National Suicide Lifeline. Okay, explain what that is.
Yes. That program is actually not connected with 211. That is connected with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
Okay.
So that hotline has been in existence for about 15 years.
Wow.
Nationwide. The phone number currently is 1-800-273-TALK. So it will be moving by July of next year to a 3-digit phone number of 988. It will be very similar to 211 in that it's a short 3-digit dial code to reach services and reach support.
Right.
But it is a little bit different.
So you said it's going to start next July.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we think about that, why isn't starting it sooner? Or what changes have to happen?
Yeah.
Is it really any changes for the person who's calling?
There are no changes for the person who's calling, other than the phone number. And but behind the scenes, there are a lot of technology changes nationwide to make 3-digit calling a possibility for 988 because of area codes and 10-digit dialing. It can be very complicated. So right now, telephone providers, Verizon, AT&T, companies like that, are working behind the scenes to enable the technology for 988 to be an active telephone line.
Okay. So with 988, is it going to be kind of like the 911, but like mental health? What's that? Because 911 right now, if somebody's having an emergency, they think 911.
Yeah.
What about 998?
It will be similar in the sense that it will be a crisis line that's available nationwide for anybody, whether they may be feeling suicidal or if they just need somebody to talk to. They're not sure what's going on with their feelings. Sometimes that happens too. A lot of anger, a lot of panic, a lot of worry. There's a lot of worry right now. And so 988 will be available nationwide for people to call in any kind of mental health emergency or crisis. It is not connected with 911, though, in safety, at times for safety, 911 may have to be dispatched or emergency services. But that is not every call.
Right. Because I know when callers call, they have fears about what's going to happen if I do call, or if I tell you really what's going on.
Yeah.
What are some of those fears that you hear or you know about that callers might be hesitant about?
Yeah, there are a lot of fears around sending the police or sending emergency services, sending somebody out to intervene. And that is very rare that happens. It happens in times when safety is needed, when something someone may have already done something to harm themselves and they need an immediate intervention. But it's done for the safety of the caller and when there's no other options available. But the call specialists and the crisis specialists that take these calls work to try to de-escalate and help help the caller work through whatever the situation is that they're going through with the least restrictive means. So
Right.
they're going to try to help the caller through that call without needing outside resources. But there are circumstances where that does happen,
Right.
and that is
Right.
needed.
Right. For when a crisis specialist is on the phone, they're really going to try to, it sounds like, just listen to that person, get the resources as in long-term resources, not immediate resources, and work really hard before they would actually try to, like, wait a minute, I need to get you help now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do what I need to do to get you help now.
Yes.
Like last resort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Last resort. And those, sometimes those connections to resources may be more immediate, but it may not be resources. It's not emergency services. Maybe it's, a connection to a health department or to a mental health agency to set up a counseling appointment. It may be help, reaching out for substance abuse support. Different things like that. Connections to the resources that they may need.
It could also be like basic resources, food, shelter, the food pantry I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Absolutely. Assistance with financial support, help paying, rent or utility assistance.
Sometimes that can really ramp up if somebody's struggling with their mental health and they can't get their basic needs.
Yeah.
That really pushes almost to an emergency
Absolutely.
for folks.
Yeah.
And that's what this can do, is help with that, so before it gets to the emergency part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Help in that kind of early crisis intervention.
Yeah. So when we think about suicide, I mentioned that when we first started, there is a program, because 988 is going to be for those mental health emergencies, but right now there is 211 Press 1.
Yes.
What is that? What is 211 Press 1?
So 211 Press 1 is a specific program for Marylanders. It is formerly the Maryland Crisis Hotline, which was its own 800 number, and has now come into the programming with 211. So callers in Maryland can dial 211 and press 1 and reach their local crisis centers. And to back up and clarify, I guess, a little bit about the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, that hotline also routes to local call centers. So for callers in Maryland, they're going to get routed back to a local Maryland crisis center that is familiar with resources in their area or in the state.
Right.
That may be able to support them or help. Similar. So 211 Press 1 is very similar to the work that's being done also through the Lifeline.
Okay.
Really meeting people where they are with their needs.
Being
Providing that listening, that listening ear and that support to just help work through, maybe a difficult situation, a difficult time in a person's life.
So is there going to be a difference between 211 Press 1 and 988?
There is a difference in that they're two different entities, they're two different programs, but the services they provide are very similar.
Okay.
Both are crisis hotlines that are routed to local crisis centers, and in a lot of areas in Maryland, it may be the same center that's answering both types of those calls. On the Eastern Shore, Life Crisis Center answers both of those hotlines, as well as our own crisis hotline.
Right.
And the experience for the caller may be very similar across any of the hotlines, and either of those hotlines, depending upon what their needs are. If somebody's considering suicide or has a friend that is considering suicide, things like that, they can call either hotline and speak to somebody that's trained specifically in suicide prevention and intervention.
Right.
And crisis intervention, and just provide that extra support or connection to resources.
Yeah. So 211 Press 1 is the mental health part of it. General 211, I know that's nationwide too.
Yeah.
So what is just general 211?
General 211 is a connection with a lot of information and referral, basic needs, like food pantries, like we mentioned earlier, food pantries, utility assistance, financial support, mental health programming, support, services, whether it's counseling or PHP programs, things like that.
Okay. Okay. Now, I know that 211, as I said, is nationwide.
Yes.
But say we're right here at Delmarva, so our borders are really, really close to us. So if we go into Delaware or Virginia, who are we going to get? Like if I want to make sure I'm getting my local Maryland, because I live in Maryland, but I happen to go into Delmar or into Seaford or, or down towards Accomack County, what happens then?
So you would be routed to the closest call center based on location. So it would route that call, potentially maybe to a Delaware call center. And we do occasionally have that where, on our end, it's a Delaware caller that's trying to reach the Delaware 211. And we provide a warm transfer to the other 211 center so that we can connect them with their local program.
Okay. All right, good. So you mentioned about if a friend or a family member or even themselves are thinking about suicide. Let's talk about that because that's a worry. If I had a friend, no, I'm trained in this, but if I were not trained in it, I would be worried, what do I do? What do I look for? Help me. Yeah. So what do you say to that?
Yeah, signs, I guess, to look for, any noticeable changes, major changes in sleeping, eating, daily routine, withdrawal, any signs of withdrawal or isolation, kind of maybe giving away possessions, almost preparatory, like wrapping things up.
Saying goodbye.
Yeah, saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Those can all be warning signs that something's going on.
What if they start talking about that they want to end things?
Talk to them. Listen, and be support. Don't be afraid to say suicide or to ask.
Actually say that word to them.
Yes.
Because I know people totally shy away from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People do. And, talking about it takes some of the power of the pain and the guilt and the shame for having those feelings. It removes some of that and brings it out into the open.
It's like it's giving them permission to talk.
Yeah.
So if I am worried about somebody, what do I do? Besides recognize the signs, what's the next step?
Yeah. You could call the hotline and talk to somebody more specifically about the situation, and ask, maybe ask for questions or resources, but most importantly, talking to that friend or that loved one that you're concerned about, and expressing that concern, letting them know that you're worried and you want to help them. Yeah. Whatever that is, Maybe it's sitting with them and making a call for, making a call to their counselor to set up an appointment, or making a call to a hotline to get some service
while you're with them.
Support.
Okay, and then so you're talking to the hotline, but then you could then give the phone to the other person.
You could.
Okay.
You could.
Okay.
And just provide that extra support of being there with them.
Yeah.
Because it can be very scary for people to call a hotline or to reach out for help. That can be a very scary experience for some.
Right. So some of it, I call it the ministry of presence, just being present with them, expressing your concern that you're worried about them.
Yeah.
Let's get you some help. And then anything after that, any follow-up or anything? or just constant checking in.
Checking in, you know, providing support, you know, whatever that is, depending maybe upon the relationship. Maybe it's a check-in text or some regular calling. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. Maybe it's removing items that could be used for harm in a home. Putting knives away, things like that,
Right.
locking up weapons.
Maybe contacting some of their own family members or
Yeah.
friends, so there's added support, not just you,
Absolutely.
as the only resource for them.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
That would be a great idea.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about resources. We've mentioned that word a few times. What resources are there if somebody is suicidal?
There are a number of resources. We've talked about the hotlines, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, even 211 Press 1 in Maryland, our own local crisis hotline. Some additional websites or resources that people could maybe access more information or support. The suicide prevention website is suicidepreventionlifeline.org. There's a hotline, or there's a website for 211 as well. It's 211md.org. And through that website, you can access text or chat services as well. And it has information about text services.
Okay. Okay. So there's a lot of resources out there.
Yeah.
And people just need to reach out. We also have the Life Crisis Center hotline.
Yes.
So we can give all those numbers in a minute. Is there anything else that we have forgotten to talk about, or you want to say about
I don't think so.
any of this? Okay.
If anybody's interested in volunteering or providing support in other ways related to suicide prevention, there are a number of websites and great resources statewide and nationwide. AFSP.org is a good one. They coordinate all of the local Out of the Darkness walks, which are suicide prevention awareness walks, usually held in September.
Okay.
Throughout, all throughout the country.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you, Jen. You've given us a lot of information. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for joining us. This is a really tough topic. And if you or you know of somebody, or you yourself want to reach out and get some help, remember that the Life Crisis Center has a hotline too. And that number is 410-749-HELP. It's 410-749-4357. We also do text to chat, or chat to text, or which way you want to say it. And that number is 898-211. You do have to put in your zip code for that. We have a website, www.lifecrisiscenter.org. We are on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram. Please make sure that you reach out. We are here for you. I want to thank Pack 14 also for allowing us to have this show. Thank you.